Well, welcome everyone. It's great to have you here for probably what will be the last webinar that GMI will be doing. And having so many of you here and sharing with us is just a wonderful encouragement to our team. I want you to know how much each of you mean to us. And this webinar is very specific in its nature. We at GMI have been championing this idea of knowledge stewardship, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But this webinar really is about what's next in that movement, in that cause, because as I've shared in the different videos that I've done and presentations I've given, just because an organizational structure transitions and goes away does not mean that a cause that God cares about goes away. And so it's very important that this process of talking about what God is doing in the world of missions research and knowledge stewardship is not at all, in the end, tied to GMI, but it is tied to the body of Christ and what God is doing through all of you. So that'll be the focus today of our time. We want to start in God's Word with just a little reflection I'd like to share. One of the things that God really made clear to us as we began our journey of closing down GMI was He took us to the Sermon on the Mount. And we have been reflecting on the Sermon on the Mount over the past 1 or 2 or 3 months at GMI. And what we've kind of said is we said, as we close down GMI, as we go through this process of transition, we want to live out the manifesto that Jesus presented on that day, on that mountain, at the start of his ministry. He stood there with his disciples at his feet, and of course many people gathering below, and he shared, this is what the world should look like now that I have come and my kingdom has come. And of course, we haven't fully seen that realized until Jesus comes again, but we're starting to see it realized in the lives of those who have Jesus living in them, in our lives. And so we've been reflecting on the Sermon on the Mount as a way to encourage us in our transition to live in a way that would honor God, even in a very hard thing, which is to close down an organization. And so we thought it'd be great if we could share just a few thoughts with you from that. And so the first is a very, very simple one. And the one I'm going to share today, we've written many of them, but this one is the one we'll share today. And it's from Matthew 5:7 in the Beatitudes. This is the beatitude that talks about mercy. Blessed are the merciful. In the translation or the paraphrase that I'm quoting at the top here, it's actually from Eugene Peterson's paraphrase, The Message. And we love this paraphrase. It says, "Blessed are you are blessed when you care. At the moment of being careful, you will find yourselves cared for." What is mercy? What is this idea of care? This mercy is this idea of showing careful, unmerited kindness. So what Jesus is saying is when you are careful with others, when you show them kindness that is not deserved in any way, that God will then show that same kind of careful, unmerited kindness for you. So what are some things that care represents? Well, care represents this idea of thoughtful action, not doing things carelessly or haphazardly, but doing them intentionally. We think about hospitality, that careful kindness. We think of acts of service, that mercy that we show. We also think of things like giving the right word. How many of you have been blessed when someone knows just the right thing to say at just the right moment to bless your heart, to encourage you, to give you strength, to give you a new sense of purpose? That's an act of mercy that is being given to you by that person in their words. Responding with simple kindnesses of all kinds. We can think of many, many examples. And also, of course, the generous sharing of ideas, thoughts, and resources. The stewarding of knowledge is a careful, unmerited kindness. And so as you think about this cause that we're talking about today, this idea of knowledge stewardship, I would ask you to think about, what does it mean to be careful with your words, to be careful with your thoughts, to take those thoughts that God has given you, take those thoughts that God has crafted in your mind over years of experiences and learning and insights, and carefully craft those into blessings for others in the form of work that you do, in the form of knowledge you pass on, all kinds of ways that you can have show careful unmerited kindness through the knowledge that you possess. But I think that's something that we as a team have been wrestling with. And in our transition for GMI, we've really been trying to live that way. We've been saying, how can we as GMI show careful unmerited kindness in our transition so that everyone knows how much they are loved and appreciated, even as GMI is going away. And we'll talk about how we've been doing that in a little bit here. So what is knowledge stewardship? Let me just do a review here, because I think it'll be helpful just as we then talk about the big ideas here. So knowledge stewardship is the spirit-led process of acquiring and insightfully using information for God's glory and according to his purpose. And so GMI's passion has been to see a global Christian community practicing this. And as you're going to hear from Stan and from Nelson and myself, this is already happening. When we sit down and celebrate as a team and with our partners, we're celebrating the fact that God is already on the move with a community of knowledge stewards around the world. And so we are so blessed to see evidence of that around the world in each of your lives and in the lives of so many others. And so we feel in many ways like our vision is becoming a reality. And that gives us great encouragement, even in the face of GMI closing down. So just a quick reflection on GMI's history. It's 33 years of serving the nonprofit community, the ministry community. Obviously, early leader in the geographic information systems area with the early mapping systems and the early partnership with SIL, who's on this call, doing so much strategic work of passing on the language data of the world to the ministry community. A lot of the early work in digital publishing and publishing missions data in books like Target Earth and the GRDB and all these old products, as well as then, obviously Operation World, over 30 years of work, and then some of our newer products as well. And then the extensive global relationships of cross-cultural field research. We have had the great privilege of coming alongside people all over the world doing field research and providing training, collaborating on projects, sharing data, all those kind of things. And that's been such a great blessing for us. And as we've done that, really this idea of the knowledge stewardship cycle has been kind of this guiding concept of, first you have to have the information. What information is needed to understand the reality of the situation. Secondly, how do we support decisions? What decisions need to be made for the ministry to continue and move forward? And so much data has been a huge help in decision making in that way. And then thirdly, how do we evaluate the effectiveness of what we have done in response to God's calling in our lives, in obedience to God after making those decisions? So we make a decision, we decide to go down a certain path. Within the next few years, we say, well, God, what have you done? And how effective has it been? And what could we do to make it even more effective? And what we found is as soon as you evaluate, you need new information because you realize the holes and the gaps and the new areas that you need to know. And this becomes this virtuous cycle of lifelong learning in the life of a ministry. And so what we're praying partly is that this cycle, this knowledge stewardship process will continue on through many of you and others and in the ministry world and those that we've trained and equipped and supported in that process. As you know, we've done that. The slides aren't loading, so you're not going to see all three areas. I'm sorry about that because PowerPoint doesn't load in with the layers. But GMI has done that through our research services, where we support ministries through providing third-party services. We do that through the data-rich content, the infographics, and the books and the maps. And we also do that through global engagement. Nelson will talk about that a little bit more, and Stan will as well, about our associates and our fellows around the world. So what are the very tangible outcomes of GMI's work? We found, number one, ministries have the information they need. That's been a wonderful thing to see. So many ministries have information that is so helpful to them. Second, leaders make better decisions. We're seeing leaders who are saying, now that I know this information, when we sit down with our leadership team or our board or our community or our staff, we're able to make much better decisions. And third, boards and leaders and donors are able to evaluate the impact and say, what's working, what's not working, and what can we do to make it more effective. We have been blessed to work in all kinds of causes in the ministry community. One of the cool things about being a non-denominational third-party research group is we've been able to help with water and sanitation, pastoral training work, leadership development, migrants and refugee response, mobilization of missionaries, church planting. That's been a great encouragement to us. These are just some of the organizations that GMI has been able to serve. There's many, many more. I'm sorry if I haven't been able to list some of the ones that are represented on this call, but at least these are a few that we've worked with, and that gives you a sense for the kind of organizations that have benefited from GMI's research. These are just a few of the products we produced. There's many, many more, but we've really been blessed to produce these products. One thing that I'll mention to you, and I'll put up the link at the end, but we've just released our first infographics in other languages. And I just saw Rodrigo Tinoco from Brazil has just logged on. Rodrigo helped us translate some of the infographics into Portuguese, and those are now up and on our website. I'll be putting up the link in just a little bit, and we're just so excited. We've launched the Spanish and Portuguese, and then we have French and Korean and Greek, actually, that will be coming in a week or two. So just so you know that we have some great new Spanish and Portuguese language resources just out this last week. So we're really, really excited about that. So how is GMI's work continuing? I'd like to just share a few thoughts on this, because in a way, this is fairly key to this whole idea of the continuation of knowledge stewardship. So first of all, when we announced the GMI transition, our team felt very strongly that God really wanted us to steward the people of GMI. We wanted to make sure that our people were continuing on in ministry in places that were really strategic. Secondly, we wanted to steward the ministries of GMI, the actual work that we do on a day-to-day basis. And then third, we wanted to be able to steward the knowledge that we've gained in the process of this transition. We've learned a lot of things about funding models and things that are working and not working and some of those sorts of things. And if you go to this page right here that I'm putting in the chat window, we actually have some articles on that page. I have a video that I did. We have 5 observations and exhortations for the mission community, where we share some of the learning that we've done. We also have an article called Why is GMI Closing, where we share some of the realities going on. And so I would encourage you to read some of those in your time over the next few weeks. And if you have any questions at all, please let us know, and we'll be glad to share those. We've been asked, I've had calls with many people. We've been asked to come and speak about this topic and share what we've been learning. We just did an article or an interview with Christianity Today, and they're doing an article about it as well. And so we're trying to share so that we are good knowledge stewards in every way in our transition and honoring God in that process. So those are kind of the 3 ways, but let me talk about a few of them in more detail. So GMI staff, all but 2 of us at least have potential plans for the next steps. So I'm encouraged. I can't share those with you yet. If you know certain staff, feel free to reach out to them directly one-on-one and pray with them and ask them what they're thinking about. Many of them haven't quite decided, but they're looking at options. And so please pray for our staff as they decide on final options. But I'm encouraged to let you know that many, many staff are finding next steps, and those next steps will keep them engaged in ministry into the future. And so that's super exciting. The second is we're doing several acquisitions of some of our resources that we have contracts with, and then there's some other key partners in place are being acquired. And so that is going on. The only one I can announce yet, because the others aren't final yet, but the one I can announce is that our research services division, so all of our work when we do fee-based research for other ministries, is moving to a group called Calvin Edwards and Company. We had already been partnering with them for 2 years now. Great, wonderful researchers, doing a lot of evaluation work with them, supporting some large ministries in evaluation work. And Calvin Edwards and Company is taking on GMI's Research Services division. And so I'm excited about that because that means that our ongoing work in providing independent missions research to ministries that can pay for that service will continue on. And so I'm very encouraged about that. The second piece that I want you to know about, and you probably already heard about this, is that we, on April 25th, we announced the granting of 10 suites, 9 or 10, I forget how many exactly, but suites of intellectual property or content that we are actually going to be giving away as grants. That cycle closed already, and we've had many, many ministries from all over the world apply for those. And so now we're in the internal process of reviewing and evaluating those grant applications. And in the first 2 weeks of June, we'll be announcing the winners of those. And we're excited because we're so excited to see how the ministries that content represents will continue on after GMI is gone in lots of cool and exciting ways. I'm very pleased with some of the ministries that have applied and how they're thinking about using the content and the data. And so stay tuned, and you'll be hearing about how all that goes. And finally, there's so many networks and relationships and things that GMI has been a part of, and we're so excited to see that a lot of the data that we've infused into those networks and relationships will continue on strong and moving forward, and no longer needs us in that same way to continue on. So I'm really encouraged and excited about that as well. I've had so many people write me and tell me how much they appreciated GMI's work and how they are ready to continue on that work and in their own ministries and networks. And so we're excited to see what God will do there. Finally, I want to hit on this last point, and then I'm going to turn it over to Stan Nussbaum to share. So Stan, if you want to come on and get your audio on so that you're all ready to go. The final thing I want to share is that knowledge stewardship is a cause, and a cause is not owned by any organization. A cause is something that is a movement that God cares about, that He is doing in the life of His church. And He's mobilizing through many, many, many people. And so what I'd like to encourage you all with is this idea of stewarding more than your time, talent, and your treasure, in stewarding your knowledge is something for anyone who wants to take it up. It's a personal discipline. It's an approach to your work as mission information workers. It's a response to God's gracious gift of insight to you. And I just would like to encourage you that it's for you to take up, and it's for you to continue on in any way you'd like to do that. So I pray that a lot of the ideas and concepts that GMI has worked on developing will be something that you can use in your own application of this big idea. One of the ways we're going to do that is when we send out the email this afternoon to everyone who's attended, we're going to send out a code that allows you a free digital download of the book I've written called The Calling of the Knowledge Steward. And so please be looking for that, and you'll be able to click on the link, and then you'll be able to use that code to get a free copy of that book. And I pray that a lot of you would download a free copy as a way to dive into the idea of knowledge stewardship in a little bit more detail. And we want to just reward and affirm those who have bothered to be on this call and register for this call, that you would have access to that resource. So, alrighty, Stan, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Jon. For those on the call, I'm speaking as the old timer. I joined GMI in 1993, and so I'm looking back, although I'm also looking at the situation right now and even looking a little ahead in the three things I want to cover. One value that GMI has always stood for over all of that time, one piece of unfinished business, and then actually three hints of items that are still on the drawing board. Looking back at the value, and you can see on the kingdom value slide, it's actually the second of the three values listed there. It's the mystery component. that idea that mission research always has this element of mystery in it has been true of GMI since the beginning, and we've worked hard to keep it there. And I'm somewhat concerned that it may get lost in the shuffle. For one thing, it's not an academic value. The academic establishment, academic research doesn't do this. In your doctoral exam, they don't ask you where faith came into all this or how this project contributed to the glory of God, or that's really, really rare that that happens. Outside the academic world, which is, and I think all of you are outside, or nearly all, um, that's where this has to be kept and maintained. One way we used to say this was that prayer and research are not substitutes for each other, and how tempting it is to think it's either one or the other. That a lot of people who pray and never do any research, a lot of other people who do research and barely remember to pray about it. And GMI's worked hard to keep these integrated. The kingdom value statement that integrated it in the mystery. The kingdom, the knowledge stewardship definition that Jon read earlier referred to a spirit-led process. And his other diagram you may have noticed is we provide information for spirit-led decisions. And there is a really solid biblical reason behind this. When people think of research in the Bible, they tend to be very familiar or quick to go to the story of the 12 spies spying out the land of Israel as an example that favors research or a biblical basis for doing research. Now that God likes this, they're not so familiar with the other side, which is David's research on his military strength in First Chronicles 21, the census he took that resulted in a curse from God in which 70,000 people died. Now, that's what you don't want to happen as a result of your research. But this is really dangerous because people are so prone to do research today, mission agencies even, to do research today in order to figure things out, and then kind of assuming, without ever really saying so, that if we figured this out better, we could solve this. We would have the information we need, and we could really get this done whether God does anything or not. And God's presence and power drop out, faith drop out, because now we have the knowledge we need, and the knowledge displaces it. And that we just can't let that happen. It's not biblical. We wouldn't ever go there intentionally, but it's very easy to drift there. So as GMI corporately dissolves, I hope that emphasis doesn't dissolve, but that it gets picked up and carried on. That I think is an important biblical value relative to research that GMI has championed for a long time, and it needs to be championed still. The unfinished business item has to do with with the field research training. About a little over a year ago, GMI launched a new version of this, which we called Searchlight. And we developed and refined a number of materials, and we got started very promising starts, but we didn't have time to get them to take off in a big way yet. So this still needs to happen. This is in one of those knowledge stewardship grants that Jon was describing. I don't know today where it will go, but I expect to encourage whoever gets it or be involved with it, myself, because I think this is really what's needed. I think we were really on the right track. We were tinkering with earlier versions of this for probably 20 years. It relates to the research manual, the field research manual that I wrote called Breakthrough. And I felt like we were just right on the brink of really having this spread and do a lot of good for a lot of people. One of the things that really excited me over the years that I saw happening over and over by people who did this kind of training was that they convinced themselves that research was valuable. In the process of doing their projects on their own ministries, they convinced themselves. They saw things happen. They saw things change. They saw their attitudes change. And it wasn't so much what I taught them or what I convinced them of, but what they convinced themselves of that I think has long-term implications, and it needs to spread out more. It's been one of my uh, complaints for years that small-scale field research training, asking the right questions to the right people in the right way, that that's just not a standard part of preparation for ministry. And that's what ministry is about, reading your situation. To read your situation, you've got to be able to do that. And we don't train people for that nearly enough, I don't think. And I won't go through these 7 points, um, but uh, but there are a lot of radical differences in them from the way that a lot of research and a lot of academic work takes place today. And I would love to see these things catch on and multiply. Now the third point is the drawing board. This is a sample of something that's still on the drawing board. I believe it was in February that I floated 2 multi-organization, multi-year project ideas with GMI. That was before, I mean, we were trying to determine whether GMI was going to be able to continue or not. And these projects were possibilities or things that I wondered whether they might float GMI's boat for a while longer um, if if we were able to launch them. Well, in the end, we weren't, but they were on the drawing board, and maybe they weren't supposed to happen, or maybe they were, and they're to happen in some other way. One of them is called Sync, SYNC. This is a sample of it, a sample of the meme, and SYNC stands for See Yourself in Christ. It's a discipleship training, a spiritual exercise plan of syncing our lives with the life of Christ. The Some of the pages of this were on the GMI site, some experimental pages. This is still experimental. There will be a website up, a new website up on Pentecost Day, which is 10 days from now. Um, and yeah, let me type that. Whoops, I mistyped it. Don't use that one. That's the real one. It isn't there yet, but it will be up on Pentecost Day if you want to have a look at what that part of the drawing board or a prototype version of the site, and it will say prototype on it. 2 other things that are on the drawing board, and again, I won't go into the details, but one is research into how leaders of rapidly growing movements train new leaders at lower levels in order to imprint that growth DNA successfully. How are they actually doing this? Folks like City Team have connections with literally hundreds of movements in different countries around the world, and they're all getting this job done somehow, but it hasn't really been studied. And this kind of disciple making, what's really going on there, and how can it be multiplied or made even better? How can the rest of the world find out about it? That's a kind of research that I think really needs to happen. It relates closely to my own doctoral research, which was on African indigenous churches in Lesotho. And then also on the drawing board is one about theological discussions in local languages, things that should be discussed but aren't getting discussed. They aren't on the academic agenda. They aren't deemed safe to discuss, or for whatever reason, they're not getting the discussion that they deserve. How could such discussions be fostered? What kind of networking would that take? When we have some ideas about some triggers or some seeds we could plant for those. But again, it's in the drawing board stage. So those, uh, that's one where we are where we've always been, is looking at and discussing and praying about things that are on the drawing board. Should this ever be tried, or not? Is it a theoretically good idea, but practically wouldn't work out? Um, what what is it? Anyway, I'll stop there. But just to let you know that um, we aren't closing because we ran out of ideas. There are plenty of ideas, and I think some good ones, and I hope that these will get carried on.
Thank you for sharing that, Stan. And I think let me just add one thing. I think Stan has done just wonderful work over the years in mentoring and equipping missions researchers around the world through the breakthrough version, and then Nelson Jennings, who's jumping on right now, has really been leading our global engagement efforts. And so Nelson, why don't you come and share a little bit about where that stands and kind of what you see in the future there as well.
Great. I hope my audio is on satisfactorily now, but great to have all of you with us in this time. And I will take just a few minutes because we want to have a little time for questions and discussion that some of you may have. Unlike Stan and John and others, I have not been associated with GMI officially for very many years. It's only been about a year and a half where my organizational connection began. Like some of you, perhaps, I observed GMI and appreciated GMI and used some of the GMI resources over the years. But it really was only a year and a half ago that I came on board, and it was in the midst of GMI proactively seeking to expand even more its relationships and collaboration with different organizations and individuals around the world. As John and Stan have both indicated, GMI always has had worldwide connections, but recognizing that as a Christian movement, we are more worldwide, more multi-directional, more multi-based than ever, GMI has sought to um, bring its resources into that situation and to learn with others and equip others together as part of the wider mission community. One way that's been happening has been through an online community called Knowledge Stewardship for Kingdom Impact, or KSKI. Some of you are members of that community. If you are not yet a member, send a note to GMI. You may send a note to me. I'll give you my email address. I'll do this a couple of times. It's jnelsonjennings@gmail.com. That will continue on beyond the time when my GMI address is no longer active. jnelsonjennings@gmail.com. You're welcome to contact me about anything, really, but including about this online community where we have an active discussion about various topics related to mission research and knowledge stewardship. And members initiate topics. I have been managing it, will continue to do so. And that's been a vibrant community. I will continue, by the way, I'll mention, to moderate that community, specifically in my role as a member of the Community of Mission Information Workers Task Force. The Community of Mission Information Workers, or CMIW, is directly connected with the World Evangelical Alliance, WEA, and GMI has collaborated with that particular organization in establishing and developing this online community, the KSKI community. I will continue in that task force, although my more full-time commitments are associated with a church in Korea, the Onmini Community Church. It's one of the super mega churches there. I live in the States, but commute back and forth to Korea. In fact, I just got back from there 2 days ago. And that just shows that we are indeed a worldwide, multi-directional, multi-based mission community and mission research community. So that's been one area. Another area that I'll mention briefly is we've been developing more our associates program, where GMI is interconnected with some individuals and organizations that are about various ministries, including mission research around the world. Some of you will probably receive an email that's going out, I think today even, to highlight our appreciation for these associates, but also to let you know their various names. The individuals who have been a part of this revamped associates program have been George Guma with Pioneers Africa in Ghana, Timothy Olonade, who is world renowned in speaking and organizing as a mission leader and mobilizer and cultivating mission research based out of Nigeria. Dr. Steve Moon, who is based in Seoul and has recently run a webinar about the research organization that he has helped develop over the years, the Korea Research Institute for Mission. And then Daryl Jackson, who's at Morling College in Sydney, Australia. There have been other individuals that have been involved, but in terms of formal participants in our associates program, these four have been actively engaged of late. And then organizations, we have had three. We've had others that have been engaged and are looking to join the program more formally, but in terms of formal participation, it's been the NEMA, the Nigeria Evangelical Missions Association, Mission Supporters League, also based in Nigeria, and INSERV out of South Africa, that for years has been doing great research and been working with GMI for many number of years. So those organizations have, and individuals as associates have been collaborating with us. And we highly commend them to you for your collaboration with them, and they are eager to participate and serve, on a continuing basis. And Stan mentioned earlier the mentoring program for particular research needs and particular research projects. We have seen some fellowship projects take place. We have seen some be at different stages of development in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in North India, and in Mongolia. And we've had others that have been proposed and likely would have developed as GMI fellowship projects. But we like very much, as Stan was describing, how that short-term research project program is working and how it will continue in some other organizations' care. We are more worldwide than ever as a worldwide Christian movement, and in terms of mission research, we're more worldwide than ever. And how we can help each other do research in ways that are contextually appropriate, that are effective where we all are based and serve, is what's happening, and it needs to continue to happen in multiple languages. It's already happening in multiple languages. I mean, Comey-Baum's research, for example, in Spanish is extensive, and there are many other language groups, Korean, Chinese, and others that are moving ahead. So we've been happy to be a part of that, and I'm happy to introduce to you just a few of the ways that GMI has seen its international global efforts grow recently, and some of the people, organizations with whom we've been associated. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Nelson. And I just want to affirm Nelson's great contribution to GMI over the last, even though it's not been a ton of time, over the last year and a half. Nelson comes with a distinguished and also extensive, and he has brought to GMI just a level of thoughtfulness around rolling out our service to the global church. And so the fact that we are sitting here today being able to commend these many organizations to you, and hopefully we'll be able to be sharing with you who the new director or leader of the fellowship program will be once that grant is signed. Is a lot due to Nelson Jennings and his work, as well as Stan. And I'm going to just point out that my parents are on the line, Lester and Priscilla Hirst, and actually they came onto the team. They're career missionaries and leadership development professionals serving in different parts of the world. And they came on to do a special project to really redesign the Associates and Fellowship program back in a transition time for them. They were just with us for a short time and really helped bring Nelson on board and worked with Stan. And so wanted to commend their investment in that program as well. That was such a blessing, I know, to the whole GMI team. And it's always fun for myself to be able to work with my family and share in ministry with them. We're going to open it up for questions. I'm going to share one or two things while those questions are coming in. Please go to your chat window in the bottom right and type in any questions you would have. And Nelson and Stan, I'd ask you just to jump on with your audio, because it may be that you will be the best ones to answer some of those. While we're doing that, I want to just highlight one or two things for you. Please go ahead and type those in. If we have a whole library of webinars, I just put it in the chat window. Please feel free to go there. There's a ton of webinars on many subjects. Don't let the time go by and not grab a few of those and review them. They are one of the suites that's being passed on, so hopefully they'll be kept on by another ministry, and we'll let you know who will be receiving that in the future. Mike is asking a question: is there a specific plan for the continuation of the Knowledge Stewardship community? You'll see right above the webinar link is another link that's a Google Groups link. If you click on that link, you can request to join the Knowledge Stewardship community. And as Nelson said, Nelson is going to continue managing that as part of the Community of Mission Information Workers. Nelson, come back on. What are your thoughts on what's the next step for that, as far as when will you be posting a new topic, or what are your thoughts there? Nelson, we're still not hearing your voice.
Okay, I'm on now. I'm sorry, I transitioned the audio thing.
Yep.
About the community, were you asking me just to comment on that quickly?
Yeah, and Mike's asking about the future of that continuation. When might be the next topic, that sort of thing.
Well, I just put one on a day or two ago about this webinar and related topics to GMI, but I think Mike and others, you'll see that community continuing seamlessly from the way that it's been going, and only growing, I expect. And so I anticipate, for example, next week there being a new topic. There are 2 or 3 that have been suggested by members that are kind of waiting to become live for discussion, and there are several others I have in mind, and I welcome members to pursue to suggest them on their own or to me via the community. So I think you'll see it continue in a seamless sort of a way.
Great. Thank you, Nelson. And please, you'll see that link that's groups.google.com. I would encourage you right now, click on that link and request an invite with your Gmail password or your Gmail email. And Nelson is checking for new people, and we'll get you in there, and then you can enter your an introduction and get started in engaging with that community. There's some wonderful content in there already, and I'm excited about what will come, continue to come. Another question. I see several people typing. Please go ahead and type in those questions. David is asking, I have filled in the online form for the Knowledge Stewardship on India mission. What will be the next step? David, you're referring to the Knowledge Stewardship community or the Knowledge Stewardship grants? Could you please maybe just specify what you're referring to so that we're more clear, so we can answer the community, yes. So if you have filled out the form for the Knowledge Stewardship community and requested an invite, then Nelson will be seeing those and will be able to respond. So you should be hearing from him on that. All right. While we're waiting for another question, I want to share another resource. We just launched this week the missiographics translated into Spanish and Portuguese. Please feel free to click on that link. That is the link where all the other translations will also appear. So we'll be launching French coming up in the next weeks, as well as Greek. I believe there's a Korean one coming. So please be looking on that page for all of the translations of the various infographics that we've been able to do. We're so thankful we had a grant to translate those. I'll also make a note that we are working right now our book Where There Is Now a Church, about fruitful practices in Muslim church planting. That has been translated into Spanish and will be available in time for the Comibon conference, which is the big Latino missions conference in Bogota, Colombia this fall. So please be looking for that. And then the other two translations that are coming, or three, sorry, is the Operation World Map. I think many of you are familiar with that map that GMI did of the 2010 Operation World. That is being translated into French, Portuguese, and Spanish, and will be available in the coming weeks as well. So, any other questions? We have a few more minutes. I have one more resource that I'll share at the very end. One more thing we're excited to launch next week.
Hey, John.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nelson here. I'll just mention that I've just checked on the online community. I do not see any requests that have come in to join that have not been answered. So if someone's tried and had a problem, just directly email me at jnelsonjennings@gmail.com. jnelsonjennings@gmail.com. And I'll make sure it works for you.
Great. Nelson, why don't you type into the chat box that email address just so that...
Would you do that for me, because I'm on an
type.
instrument that thank you. jnelsonjennings@gmail.com. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Stan. Great. All right. We'll wait here for another minute or two. Any questions? All right. All right. Thank you. There's Nelson's email, and feel free to email him, and he'll get you into the community if there's any issues with the Google form. Sometimes those things can be a little tricky or have some issues related to them. One thing I would say as well is if you have enjoyed the missiographics that GMI produces. So we have finished our last official infographic, but remember that there's a whole library of infographics. We have over 50 that we've created, and here's the link to those. Don't let the time pass. Obviously, the missiographics will be going to another ministry, and we hope we'll continue them strong. But don't let the time pass without going right now and downloading some of those, because they have been one of the most utilized resource GMI has produced in a long time. It's been really exciting to see them used, and so they're on every topic from indigenous communities to Muslim church planting, to the growth of the church, to the Korean missions movement. Tons and tons of them. Okay. Let's take a question from Nigeria. It says, thank you, brethren at GMI. As stated by you a few minutes ago, knowledge is a cause, not an organization. I love that. We are looking forward to learn from all that you have been doing. The Research and Development Unit of CLMN will appreciate that you link us with others in this task. Thank you for this invitation. Well, thank you so much, Olusegun, for that word of affirmation and encouragement. And I would encourage many of you to connect with our friend there in Nigeria. If you're looking for new connections in missions information, he has made known his desire to partner and connect with many of you in that way. And so I would encourage you to connect with him. And the Knowledge Stewardship community is going to be one of the really good ways to make that happen. David Greenlee said, can we download all the missiographics in one zipped folder rather than one by one? That's a good question, David. At this point, there's no way to do that. You have to do them one by one. And And unfortunately, our team is pretty intensely involved in the transition, so I don't think we're going to be able to take the time to do that at this moment. So I'd encourage you just to do the work of downloading them. Now, I would tell you that one way to get them a little more quickly that doesn't require one by one in the same way is GMI has all of our infographics on Pinterest.com in one place, and you can get them very quickly that way as well. And so I would encourage you, possibly that might be a quicker way to grab them if you're just trying to get them that way. So encourage you to get those infographics on Pinterest. They're also all on Facebook for download if you want to go to our Facebook page for your graphics. They've all been shared on Instagram as well. So there's many, many ways to grab them that hopefully will be fairly straightforward. Okay, in a moment we're gonna pray. We're gonna pray for each of you, and we're gonna use a prayer that we've developed for knowledge stewards. But first, I want to see, are there any questions, anything else that might come up that you would like to ask us before we go on to that? Okay. Well, I want to announce, before we pray, I want to announce one more thing. You know, it's so cool, isn't it, that even though we're closing down, to the last day we are producing new things, and I'm just so thankful for that. It's not anything that we can take credit for. It's only God's grace and strength and all the things that have been going on over the last year that are now coming to fruition. But I want to give you a heads up, something that has not been publicly announced beyond to smaller groups. But GMI and the Operation World team have just finished the Operation World app. So now for your Android or your iPhone, you can now download a free application, a free app that has about 75% of all the content in Operation World 2010, with some updates from Pray for the World, including some things from South Sudan and other things like that that were new additions. This app is an amazing new tool. It's a free tool. You can have it remind you every day to pray. You can have favorites. You can share seamlessly with Twitter and Facebook. You can browse by country or by day of the year. And if you go to that link that we just shared, operationworld.org/prayer-app, and scroll to the bottom, you'll see the prayer of the day, and as well as you'll see a way to download the app. This will be officially announced on Pentecost Sunday on June 4th. That is when the press release will go out the Friday before, and then we'll be doing a lot of promotion as of June 4th. So please feel free to download it, share about it, help us to get some interest in letting people know that it's coming. And I would tell you the other thing that is important to note, the reason we picked Pentecost Sunday partially is because GMI is involved in a special day called the International Day for the Unreached. And I'm putting that URL in right now, and you can get a whole bunch of resources for the International Day for the Unreached. But on June 4th, there'll be a special event, live broadcast on Facebook, with a sermon by David Platt and special music and resources being shared. And so June 4th, Pentecost Sunday, is a special day for you to focus on reaching the unreached. And we've had another question about how to get to the app. I'm going to put that link in the window again. The app is currently available as of today. And David, there is the link to download the app. And so you can feel free to start promoting it, but June 4th is the day to do the big promotion. So feel free to share within your organizations or among your friends. There's nothing keeping us from promoting it. But at the same time, we're trying to make a special push on Pentecost Sunday to get the word out. So we'd ask you to help us to do that in a concerted way on June 4th to get as many people downloading. One of the cool features on the app I'll mention to you is there's a link at the bottom that says, I am praying, and you can just click that at the bottom of every country, and people around the world will know how many people are praying on that given day for that country. And that is such an encouragement to the people of that country to know that there may be 100, 200, 300 or more people praying for their country on that day through the app. So hopefully you'll take advantage of that special tool. Well, I hope that you feel not only that there's been an opportunity for understanding our heart in this closure, getting an update from our team on where things are at, but I also hope that it's helped you to be reinvigorated about this cause of knowledge stewardship, and then resourced with a lot of new resources that are just coming out that Nelson has shared about, Stan, and I have shared about. So even in transitioning, our hope is that you will feel that GMI is resourcing you to the very last day. And I would ask you that as we pray for you in a moment, you would really pray for our team. Our team is working till the last moment. Till the doors close, we are working to transition things and to place things well and to honor God in that process. But as you can imagine, that is has significant wear on our team. It's a lot of work. It's emotionally very hard work to close an organization down. There's a lot of details, details I would have never imagined you have to take care of when you're closing down an organization. So I pray that you would pray for us. If you can, on a daily basis, especially through the end of June when we are officially going offline in that way, please pray for us that we would do a good job, that we would finish well and honor God in our stewardship. So I'd like to finish with a blessing for each of you. In my book, The Calling of the Knowledge Steward, I end the book with a prayer, and we're going to be sending you a code to get a free copy of that book as an ebook. We can't give away the print, but as an ebook. And in that book, we have this prayer, and I want to pray this prayer over each of you on the call right now, and pray that God would do these very things in your life today. So we're going to pray this prayer, and then we'll sign off for the day. Dear God, I'm amazed at the richness of your resources. You create over and over and over. Every day, your energy is as great as the day before. Your insight and your wisdom do not have an end. I know that you will bring about just the right resource at the right time, every time, to act as a tool of bringing in your kingdom. But I know that the catalyst for that is me. Not because I'm special, God. Not because everyone on this call is special. Instead, because you chose us to be a steward of your creation. Each one of us on this call, God, you have chosen to be a steward. You have made us for this amazing task. My hands and feet, our hands and feet, our mouths, our ears, our minds, our soul, we're all made for this job. But the question is, will we choose this job of stewarding knowledge? Our heart is torn by the desire of our minds and body and soul. We daily believe this lie and lose out on the blessings of taking our true place. Bring us back in line, God. Adjust our priorities to your will. Make us a humble, discerning, servant-hearted steward community today, God. Take every selfish thought that we have captive and replace those thoughts, God, with your thoughts. Then release us to bring wisdom and insight into your world. Amen. We thank you, each of you, for all that you have meant to us. You on this call, the 20 or 30 that are here, are just a small microcosm of the larger community represented by the people that GMI has gotten a chance to serve. And we want to say to you, as a representative of the much larger group, that it has been our great privilege to serve you. And so we thank you for that opportunity. We thank you for your love and kindness to us. And we are so looking forward to seeing how you're going to honor God as knowledge stewards in your own lives and ministries. So we thank you for your time today. Pray that you would be blessed, and please feel free to connect and communicate with us, and we will be in touch. Thanks so much, and God bless. Have a great day.